The survivors of Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein, and their co conspirators are speaking out. And this might be one of the most important videos I've ever done because I need you to get their voices everywhere. Share this video, like, comment, subscribe, spread this everywhere because the next 10 minutes will be devoted to uplifting the voices of the women who survived decades long abuses of Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and their co conspirators. Moments ago, 24 of the women sent the following letter to the House of Representatives and the United States Senate. We write to you as the family of Virginia Roberts Giuffre, it reads, and as fellow survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and their co conspirators. You have the ability to vote to release the Epstein files and with it, deliver a promise the American people have waited for far too long. We implore you to do so. Goes on to say, embody Virginia's courage, be brave, and stand for her in her absence. Vote yes on the Epstein Files Transparency Act for justice, accountability, and the truth. These are the 24 women who signed. Sky and Amanda Roberts, the family of Virginia Giuffre. Danny and Lynette Wilson. Rachel Benevols. Danielle Bensky. And you can continue reading. 24 survivors of Epstein, Maxwell, and their co-conspirators. Virginia Giuffre's family spoke up about the White House using her name, using it as a political tool. And I need you to watch this moment.
I don't think any survivor, including my sister, should be used as a political toy. These are sisters and mothers and daughters. Amanda mentioned we're grieving right now. I think the world is grieving a little bit for her because she's not here to speak for herself. And so it felt very disrespectful for them to unredact her name when she's not here to speak for herself. We're, of course, going to stand forward and we're going to continue to fight for her and all survivors out there because I want to be very clear. If my sister was here today, she would be appalled by this administration. She would not refer to President Trump as a gentleman. He's not acknowledging survivors. Not once has he even acknowledged my sister in the sense of who she was as a hero. I mean, the reason we're even here today having this conversation, Jen, in which she should be sitting with you, not me, is because of her and so many brave survivors that came forward. And now these files are being released. And so I just think it's time to put a little respect on her name and all survivors' names and treat them as heroes. And stop and just stop the nonsense, this political BS bullshit that just keeps coming out of his mouth and the administration's mouth. It needs to stop.
Well, they are heroes. They are heroes. We need to put the respect on her name and the names of all survivors, including Annie Farmer.
You had actually reached out to the Justice Department, to the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, with your concerns about their treatment of Maxwell and her being moved to a lighter security prison. Did you ever hear back from the Deputy Attorney General?
No, and I think that's very telling. There's been no communication at all.
So you've heard nothing from the administration as this has been playing out?
No, I have heard nothing. And, you know, I guess just one further point I wanted to make, just because it's kind of in my mind now, what your last guest was saying, that it's unlikely that this would, that this would continue on or move forward in terms of the legislation. And it just, I feel like it's important to note that so many things that are unlikely have happened when it comes to this case. It was very unlikely that we would get the signatures we needed for this discharge petition. And here we are, we have them, right? It was very unlikely that Andrew would no longer be a prince, and that's happened. And I think, for years, people said it was unlikely that anyone would care or know about the crimes of Epstein and his co-conspirators. And people clearly do. So I really believe that that people are going to demand that this move forward. And I think it's very likely it will happen.
Annie Farmer's right. These survivors have been through so much, and so much of what we've seen is unlikely. She's right. It's highly unlikely that 4 Republicans would have joined all Democrats in the House of Representatives to sign a discharge petition that many thought would fail from the beginning. It was unlikely that we'd be here today where the entire country, the entire world, is demanding the release of the Epstein files. And here we are. And as Epstein victims say, as these survivors say, it doesn't matter who it is. All powerful people need to be held accountable.
Really speak for themselves. You know, you read it and you have a very visceral reaction to them. But I do think they just speak for themselves. And I think survivors have been very clear and consistent about our messaging that anyone who performs harm or anybody that has done any wrongdoing or has harmed people should face accountability. They should be brought to justice. And I think that survivors are holding strong to that sentiment. And I think that the only way we're ever going to be able to do that is by releasing all of the files from the government.
Right, all of the files, to see the names, and obviously, to the extent that victims want their names out there, we know that there are hundreds of victims' names in there. There are also many men in there who participated, who knew, and they should be held to account.
Absolutely.
So we are learning that there was a major pressure campaign by the White House today. Now, we know there have been one for months. Trump said that anybody who would vote to release the files for that transparency, it's a hostile act to this administration. But today, they invited Congresswoman Lauren Boebert to the Situation Room, an unprecedented meeting. The Attorney General there, the Deputy Attorney General there, the head of the FBI is there to try to get her to pull her signature from the petition today that moves this to a full vote on the House floor. What does it say to you that something like this would happen in the White House, in the Situation Room?
It definitely feels frustrating, but I think with everything that came to light today, you know, we are starting to see more information. I feel like we're starting to iris in, and I do think that, you know, first of all, I want to say survivors, and myself included, are incredibly grateful to the Republican women, particularly Nancy Mace and Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and of course, even though he's not a woman, Thomas Massie. You know, I think you know, we see so much media attention on this because Epstein was such a political figure or a figure of power. And there's been so much attention on our stories, but abuse happens all the time to women everywhere, and violence, you know, happens consistently to women. So I think that there's just such a broader message that for those women, particularly Marjorie Taylor Greene, Boebert, and Mace, I think they are really standing up for women everywhere, and they are saying.
In a way, she's right. She's 100% right. Right? It did take courage for Republicans to come with Democrats. Donald Trump put such pressure on folks like Nancy Mace, on Lauren Boebert, on Marjorie Taylor Greene. He desperately didn't want them to sign on, and yet they did it anyway. And Donald Trump right now is in the crosshairs, and as one survivor told BBC News, he may be even more in the crosshairs than the public right now even knows about.
Met Donald Trump, is it right, through Ghislaine Maxwell?
I did, yes, and I met him on several occasions. Ghislaine Maxwell did introduce me to him, and she introduced me to him with a clear message of my being with him in the same way that she had trafficked me and brought me to Jeffrey Epstein.
Release the damn files and release it now. And in the meantime, never forget the survivors. Spread this everywhere, and I'll see you soon.